Weird Science
is the revolution.
Power Girl number 6, written by Leah Williams, art by Marguerite Savage, Becca Carey, and that's it. Actually, you have the artist Margaret Savage doing all the work. Heavy lifting, Eric. And we're going to go to Fimia, the crazy. Like, how do you get so convoluted to just end up doing the trope of, oh no, we're in a fantasy world that we have to work through or whatnot? This involves drugs that may or may not be alien, that kind of affect people, that they're not ending up being that bad, but they are.
But when we say alien, we don't mean from outer space. We mean from another universe or world type of situation.
Again, you spell it out at the beginning in this crazy way of like, this drug doesn't really do that many bad things. And also people end up, when they take the drug, like you're playing the idea of taking this drug and going to a fantasy world.
Yes.
But people go missing in there.
Again,
but you have to have people come back to tell you about it. But then they, right away, it fails.
It's such a weird idea because you have the idea that people are just taking this drug called Avalon to go and have themselves a psychedelic trip to the fucking medieval times or whatnot. And the thing is, when you take this pill, are you physically transported there, or is it all of the mind? And if it's all of the mind, how do people disappear? I'm like, I don't feel like I understand the rules enough here to fully understand. Like,
and I think they go against the rules through this.
If the one girl here was being pressured to take this drug with her friends in this, like, dorm, school, which is weird because it's called the Kilgore Institute. I thought it was going to be a Kilgore story at one point, even though you don't have the percentage symbol instead of the O. But I'm like, if she didn't get pressured into this, would she just see her friends disappear right there? Because I think that raises some alarm bells.
The alarm bells of, oh, holy shit, this drug, they disappeared. I'm not taking it anyway. The idea, I get that some people are like, fuck this, I'm out. I want to go to this place. But
I love gambling.
You're playing with this weird idea of these people go to this fantasy world, but there is no way to get back. So how do you find out about the fantasy world of people not coming back when people disappear, but maybe they don't because at one point they walk into a room and they're there, but why do they... doesn't make sense. And then from the beginning, you are going to play up, hey, it's not a date. Like, it really is that, it doesn't do anything wrong, except maybe that you disappear and end up in fantasy land. But hey.
Yeah, we use the slave labor.
But then later, you want to have, the Supergirl and Power Girl take it, but then they say, oh, no, it might be addictive, but then throw in the caveat because we're Kryptonian. Oh, okay. Nothing makes sense. And
different physiology, I get it.
In that, you even have them know things about this off-panel, kind of. They're looking through a microscope, and then they seem to know everything about it. Then they open it up. Then they heat vision. It's all over the place. And this is this type of story that I'm kind of used to with Leah Williams when I read a bunch of the stuff at Marvel. When I warned, things get wacky. You're going to have a little, sexy stuff in this. It's just everybody's thinking of boning people. That's about as sexy as it got. But still, this is a convoluted mess of a narrative to do something that is so oddly off the deal anyway. We're doing another crazy cool down type thing, and this is multiple issues when we do have Symbiote Ship Kalex waiting.
Oh, the only thing...
I thought maybe that Symbiote Ship Kalex stuff, they're waiting for Absolute Power to kind of throw that in as well. Why would you delay
the only thing I can say
this?
About this that I think I appreciate a little bit is that Streaky, the Supercat story from before, at least ties into this because the animals that Streaky rescued in the previous issue were the ones being tested on with this Avalon drug, against the law and stuff like that. So I'm like, at least it wasn't a one and done story.
Man, even then, this whole thing ends up everything's just thrown at you. You have this girl, she ends up in fantasy land. Everybody's traipsing around there. La, 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 la. We're heading to the castle. Then we just go to Metropolis the next day. And it just becomes, hey, I heard that a lot of college kids are taking drugs. You're like, what you say? I've never heard that before. Then they also say that there's some van pulling up. I'm like, Bibbo, what the fuck are you up to? What are you up to, dude? But even then, when you get to that, because there's college kids taking drugs that people are disappearing, but people know they're disappearing, still taking the drugs. We better go undercover. I always like Undercover. Me and you both do. We love the idea of, here we go. You don't even get to play the fun of them trying to be college kids.
Well, even the idea of this. I see Paige come in here, and I'm like, you just freaking Drew Barrymore and better never been kissed going into high school kind of shit because you try to act like you're a part of this college thing. Like Supergirl, I could buy. For some reason, well, the thing is, I say that Supergirl and Paige both look hot and they're just dressed like young girls. But I'm like, it's so weird to me that Paige is trying to act like a college freshman to a degree in my mind.
But that would be fun. I think that
it becomes 22 Jump Street where they just kept looking at freaking Jonah Hill and said,
that's
what are you,
all
90?
I wanted. That's what I wanted. So when we get this, though, we already set up that this page, Power Girl, that Leah Williams is writing, doesn't even understand what's a voicemail. What's that? Like, remember when she was there and like she had no clue about anything, which felt weird. But then you don't really. She just dresses up in its fashion show to then go to a frat party to then walk into a room and find some. But they didn't disappear. They're laying on a bed, and Omen is mind controlling, and they're like, no, you can't do that. But she does. Like, there's no real story here.
And that's the thing, like, the idea that they go into that room, I feel like they were just about to have an orgy or just got done an orgy at that point in time. But like, all right, just go to sleep and don't remember any of this. Let's check the drug supply.
Yeah. And like, you see two dudes, two girls, so they're like, oh, sorry. Hey, we're going to take your drugs. And we shouldn't take college kids' drugs. Hey, we got to take the drugs.
I'll take all the college kid drugs.
This really feels like a story that, you know, Leah Williams, they threw it at her at the last second. Come on, come up with it. Like it's a Mad Libs type of deal because you just go from one scene to the next and wacky
even
stuff.
The idea, when you have these two, like, you know, goons with the comedy and tragedy mask that we saw in the Streaky issue previously, who are gathering all the animals up. In this one, like the Supergirl and Power Girl, they go after them for, like, you know, dealing drugs and stuff like that. They're able to spray paint a freaking symbol of the magical land they belong to on the wall, touch it, open up a portal and disappear. And the queen of this realm's like, well, it's lucky I was able to, like, turn on the thing for you because I wasn't, like, about to originally. To the point where later on, Power Girl and Supergirl, they'll do the same thing to get there, and for some reason they can just do it no problem, even though it seems like the queen had to send that, like, to be able to activate this for her goons.
That's the thing. Everything goes against what you already saw. And even when you go, like, maybe you could have had a 21. They're setting it up to be 21 Jump Street. Hey, we're going to have to pretend we're this. We're going to have to buy the drugs. But what they do is walk into one orgy room, and Omen puts them to sleep, and then really just reads their mind and says, oh, they're getting this drug from people in a van that end up having theatrical masks. Boom, boom, boom. That's not a great way to do a story. And maybe that could have been a little more interesting or at least funny. But you end up where they're like, okay, well, let's go. And then they argue about, hey, you're not supposed to, you know, mind control people or whatnot, even though Omen keeps doing it. And then they just go to the lab and off they go.
And it feels so weird because I know that Omen is a regular guest star of this series, right? And Supergirl pretty much is the cameo of it. But for some reason, Lilith feels like such a hanger-on third wheel in this, just showing up. They're like, hey, what's going on, college kids? I'm helping out, too. I'm like, oh, you're here, too, huh, Omen? Cool.
I thought that maybe at that point, just tell me if this would have made some sense, you know, a little bit. Hey, Omen, while we go and check out this drug, why don't you look into this van thing? Because when they are looking at the drug, they're like, okay, let's see. They open it up, and it looks like a gaseous, like, thing. That could just send them off, too. You know, whatever that fucking place is called, this Fantasyland, Fimia. And then in the meantime, you could have Omen looking into it, and then she gets to the sigil or whatever. But this thing goes, they heat vision it and say, oh, we can't use that, just to then go through this portal that shouldn't be, but still are stuck. Like, like, why?
It's such a weird idea, too, because you take this Avalon drug that just looks like a pellet, like a boba fucking deal, and you're looking at it, and we cut a sliver off, and all of a sudden this, like, little smoke stuff
why
goes
didn't
out.
that send them there? Why didn't they just inhale it?
Immediately, Paige looks like she's about to vomit.
Yeah, she's going to throw up.
Smacks it down, and then all of a sudden she's at the microscope looking at things and like, hey, check this out. Hey, take a look. No, you take this first. And then she heat visions the sample like, look, Paige, we only have a small amount of samples that we could use. Why do you keep destroying these things? What the fuck are we doing?
I want to give you the progression. Right, please. They open it up, which should have just like, oh no, we didn't want to go to Fimia, and they end up there. But instead, they look in the microscope, heat vision it, and then you end up with Paige, and then whatever happened to we only have a limited number of samples. This is the line. I changed my mind once we discovered it's some kind of organic biomorph. When the fuck did you discover that? I know you're there looking in there, but you never did.
And this progression. One.
Yeah, the progression of that, I say, and an alien. When did we get this? There's not much going on in this issue that there's no reason to push that aside. That's the most important thing that you've mentioned up in this point, but I don't even know what it means because you just kind of you never showed us this. How can you not show us that? I think
but it's
that
okay,
really,
Jim. Because we're just gonna spray paint the big old F on the wall, teleport ourselves to Fimia, and don't worry because Paige, ever since Lazarus Planet or Lazarus Reign, whatever we're gonna call it, she's got that reality punching power, so she can just punch a hole back through reality, get us back up. But the thing is, once we teleport there, for some reason the Queen allows that teleportation to go through, and even though it's not where she teleported the other people, her goons. Oh no, our powers don't work in Fimia. What are we going to do now? And we also have an art change at that point where everybody becomes even more cartoony. I'm like, and again, I say all this ridiculous stuff, still less infuriating in my mind than Detective Comics and The Flash, because I can follow what's going on here. It's not great, but I can follow it.
At least that's the thing. Again, like I said about Flash, the caveat is I know what to get angry about in this because I know what's happening. It's a very clunky story that really means nothing. So when you're going, but I do think, and as we're going through it too, even then they're like, okay, well, we're going to go through this portal, but I can punch through reality and I can come back. They're supposed to investigate. She's trying to punch through right away. It doesn't work. But I think that by the end, I think all we're doing here is kind of having a fashion show. I do think it's more of Marguerite Savage, like, hey, I want you to have them dress up as cool college kids. Then we're going to have them in lab coats. Then we're going to do
Marguerite Savage?
Yeah, I think that's who's doing the art, is the artist, Marguerite Savage. So when she's allowed to do them in schoolgirl outfits, she's in the regular costumes. Then eventually they'll probably be dressed up as, knights in shining armor, whatever you have in this Fimia. But what is this play? What is it? And then it's just this big bad, I'm going to get you and your power energies and I'm going to do this. But it's all a bunch of bullshit. It really is. And what it does feel like, and this is not a compliment, this feels like a knockoff of the already awful Harley Quinn and the multiverse shit.
Oh, even the idea we're calling back to that unearthed stuff that we dealt with in the Batgirl series. Oh my God.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you're already going through a trope of...
Was it Nightwing and Batgirl?
Yeah, it was actually at the unearthed was Batgirl kind of got it, but it was also Teen Titans at one point where they ended up having that, and it was bad. But at least that was this guy came up with these things in his mind and they became reality. But in this, I don't understand. I don't know why we're doing this. It just seems like you're, trying to just fill up issues. But
well, even the idea where it's the Queen is all like, the more people that take Avalon that come to Fimia, the more I have for my hive mind. And then I just look at the last page here. It just seems like you have these fuckers here who you kept disappeared from our world. They're just moving boulders from left to right.
Rocks. That's all they're doing.
Hive mind you're doing.
And the hive mind. And I also like where you're just thrown into this. And again, this is like the classic, Leah Williams type deal where none of it makes sense, but she seems to just want to, fantasy world. Teeny Howard does this too. But then again, that's why the Harley stuff. But in that, out of nowhere, this bad, crazy queen that we don't know and really doesn't look that bad because everything's so cartoony says, so Kryptonian powers are neutralized in Fimia. I'm like, why is that funny?
What's going on? Kryptonians?
Yeah, and why does that mean anything? And what does it matter? Is this going to make your hype?
Calm down,
maybe you want more. And now you're going to have the story of, what are these two girls going to do without their powers? Well, they're going to be powerful anyway. They're still heroes. Hey, maybe they don't want to move rocks.
They teleported in, so they won't be a part of the hive mind, though.
Yeah. So they're kind of free, and they don't have to move rocks. Is what happens.
Right.
It's
still
bad.
better than Flash and Detective.
Well, again, I think
it's bad in its own ways, different ways completely. But I still enjoy reading this more than those other two stories, even though it's still.
I don't know that
bullshit.
I enjoy reading it more. I just don't get as mad. Maybe it's the same. I actually think that at this point, if you are, maybe they're trying to do this. Maybe they're like, man, those few people who are reading Power Girl, we need to get rid of them because you had at least a story that meant something with the symbiote ship. You ended up having none of it really ever worked because it didn't seem like Leah Williams knew the character. But you were actually, when the symbiote ship deal, you actually got to a point of, okay, finally we're doing something Power Girl-esque. We're actually doing something that would mean something in a Power Girl book. No, push that aside for Fimia, whatever the hell you call it. Drugs, craziness, fantasy world.
Streaky the
None of it makes
Supercat.
sense. None of it makes sense. It went against itself throughout, and then at the end you're like, yeah, this is bullshit. But seems like she wants to have some fun, so we'll give her some credit for that. But what would you give it?
I would give it, I say it's better than Texas. I'm going to give the exact same score of a 5 out of 10 here.
5 out of 10 is what I am.
I'm not a fan of the cartoon aspect of where we change, but it's fun for what they're doing with the idea of going to a fantasy-like world to make it more cartoony. It's just not a good story overall, but it feels more comprehensive than anything we have going on in the Flash and Detective Comics right now.
Yeah, I wish there was vampires in it, because then it might have more stakes. That's what I say. Yeah, it's just like you read it, and like, again, it's like that side thing. And when I read it, I also think like, nobody's reading this book anyway, but they're trying to have fun. But it was pretty bad.
Weird science
is the revolution.